Do we have any other motions without notice? Yes, Councillor Andrews.
Yes, I have one, and that is regarding an inaugural. Sorry, the motion reads that this council sponsor the inaugural South Australian National Town Crier competition to the value of $1,000 to be held on Saturday, April the 8th, 2017 in Victor Harbour. In other words, a gold sponsorship. The reason I do this is that the Economic Development Committee has recommendations, hasn't come forward to this meeting, and it won't be until February. But at the end of the day, I'd like to give you an update as to what is happening with this National Town Criers competition. I'll just give this.
Thank you. With that motion, I'm going to have to declare a conflict of interest. The Town Crier competition is actually happening with the Council Celebrations event on the 8th of April, and the Town Crier competition is under the umbrella of Council Celebrations, so I'll declare a conflict. I think it's inappropriate for me to vote on this, although none of the money is going to Encounter Celebrations, so, but I think it's far wiser just to declare a conflict. Thank you.
Okay, so,
Okay, let me tell you what is happening at the moment regarding this. There's a small working group which will be developing this event annually for, well, the continuation anyway, with a perpetual trophy, smaller trophies and ribbons for each competitor, all with a Victor Harbour Council logo on them. I believe there will be up to 20 competitors to date. These ambassadors from other areas in Australia, or the town criers from other parts of Australia, also from New Zealand and the UK, hopefully will be staying in Victor Harbour for a minimum of 3 days, mostly with their families, and will be visiting tourist attractions in the whole area. For this council to not be the major sponsor of the event sends, in my belief, the wrong image to the rest of Australia. After all, our local town crier, Mr Willett, is this council's and town's representative when he goes on his own, with our blessing, to take in part competitions in other parts of Australia. It's already been endorsed by the Premier of South Australia, that is our own national competition. The Premier of South Australia has endorsed it, the Tourism Minister, and also the Fluoro Tourism Association, and is supported by the Fluoro Festival of Sport, and indeed will be part of the in-council celebrations, even though we have to pay, or Mike has to pay, $250, I understand, towards using their facilities. There was some confusion at the Economic Development and Tourism meeting as to how the $1,000 was to be made up. Personally, as Mr Willett has not seen the recommendations from the administration at that point in time, I don't see how he could have agreed to it, as the Mayor indicated to the meeting. In fact, the day after the meeting, he was ready to cancel the whole event and leave Victor Harbour and this council with egg on its face due to the mix-up, and asked the Adelaide City Council to host the event, which of course they would be very interested in doing, and they are watching it. This event will be professionally promoted, and although I won't guarantee it, their aim our aim is to get a segment on the TV current affair programs, as well as the news and in the Sunday Mail of April the 9th, all giving added publicity for Victor Harbour. Plus, of course, the pure pre-publicity starting the first week in March, both here and interstate. In total, the cost of promoting and holding this event, we believe, or he believes, will be about $3,500, maybe a little bit more. He's really only asking for 25% of the cost, the rest to be made up by other sponsorship. Councillor Schofield may very well like to say a few more words about this. I know you was talking to him and said that you would be helping him.
Well, I did speak to Mr. Willett and said that I was happy to give him some suggestions, but I'm not on a working party or a committee.
Okay, so you're moving that way, Councillor Andrews, so we'll look for a seconder. Okay, so ask Councillor for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Chigwin has seconded the motion. Now, Councillor Jenkins.
Just a couple of questions for Councillor Andrews. Councillor Andrews, you referred to a small working group that is getting the town crying competition established, and said that you talked about we wanting to do something. Can I ask, you're part of that working group?
I was most certainly asked to help him.
Okay, no, that's...
As Councillor Carol Schofield was.
Sorry, the question is, are you part of the working group organising the town crying championships with Mr. Willett?
No, I'm giving him my advice, as Councillor Schofield is.
I don't believe...
Suggested.
Are you... I'm confused. When you were talking, Terry, you talked about our aim is to do such and such, and our aim is to get advertisements in the paper, and we want to try. You were using plural in what you were saying, and you referred to the small working group. So the question I've got is, are you part of a small working group helping Mr. Willett in relation to the Town Crying Championships?
Let me clear up some confusion. We had a meeting of the Economic Development Committee on Wednesday night.
Sorry, just point of clarification, Terry. That wasn't my question. I was at that meeting, so I know what happened at the meeting. The question I've got is, are you part of a working group organising these championships?
I am clarifying that. On Thursday morning, I was given the information, or in fact Mike phoned me and spoke to me about the issue. I then turned around and had a meeting at my house where Trevor Mayhew from the Flora Festival of Sport came along, and also Councillor Schofield came along. I supported Mike, and I said I would help him 100% to get this off the ground and get it happening. I believe that there will be a working group set up to do this. Mike is trying to do it all by himself at the moment. I believe there is a need for this council to help or assist him to do that. Clarification?
Has that clarified your question, Councillor Jenkins?
No, it hasn't, but I'll leave it. Thank you.
Councillor Marshall.
I'm going to speak strongly against this for a number of reasons. Firstly, this has just been raised out of the blue. People in this council have conveniently on numerous occasions used the argument this should have been put into the agenda with 5 days' notice so elected members could read it and consider it before it came to a meeting. The other issue too is that I believe Councillor Andrews, you're getting far too close to some of these things, and you should actually step back. You're an elected member, not an entrepreneur in this case. I personally think if Mr Willett wants to do this, let him do it. He came to this council 5 or 6 years ago claiming he was going to be the honorary town crier, and every year since it's cost us at least $500 from my memory. There are also regularly in the reports about renewing his remuneration, etc. There's also one glaring mistake which is always repeated. I won't say what that is now, but it's misleading to the people in the committee, and I believe that it's not council's role to do this. Why doesn't Mr Willett go and see Coca-Cola or the business people around town and get their support? I mean, they're the ones who are allegedly going to benefit from his antics. I just see it as badly thought out because it hasn't been publicised up until now, and I just can't go with it. I don't believe the majority of people in the town could give a hoot about a town crier, and it's his hobby. He does that, and he's clearly got an ego that he likes to appease from doing it. So I'm not interested in people like that.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Charles?
Terry, I'd like to support this for you because I know that you try very, very hard with so many things, and I've got to somehow get over my personal aversion I've got to the town crying. Hear ye, hear ye. I prefer to see some people put in stocks, perhaps, and we could do something with them that way. It's a difficult position to find ourselves in. I understand it's good for the business community, and I agree that the business community can support it. I know you brought it to council. I can see quite clearly why you brought it to council. It's something that we should get behind, just like the Murray Tours. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing that car park full of lots of businesses starting out and showing a healthy atmosphere and business sector down here, and maybe some people would be curious enough, if I haven't gone off the track, to drive from Adelaide and see what a whole lot of guys with three-corner hats are doing for 1 or 2 days. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm stuck between one way or the other. I think I'll wait until I see the hands go up and then maybe quickly put mine up or pull it down again. But it's one of those tricky things, honestly. Stick with it. Let's get Granite Island working. Don't forget Granite Island, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. I believe the CEO wanted to have a comment.
Yeah, just following up on perhaps both Councillor Charles and Councillor Marshall. Yes, this issue is new to some councillors who are not on the Economic Development and Tourism Committee. However, it was discussed at their last meeting. I was present at that meeting, and from recollection, a resolution was carried, which would come to council at the January council meeting. From memory, I think the committee is recommending, was it $500 plus in-kind support? So there is a recommendation in the winds.
Yeah, can I give you some clarification in relation to that? So at the last economic development meeting, he was asking for gold sponsorship. Now I think this is where the issue, Terry's issue, comes in. Gold sponsorship was initially $1,000. However, at the economic development meeting, the recommendation was for $500. There was significant discussion between the members of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee as to why gold sponsorship, which he was asking for, was $1,000, and yet the recommendation was $500. And the explanation that we got was that because he was involved in the development of that championship, he was able to, we'd still get the gold sponsorship deal, but we could get it at $500 rather than $1,000. So that was recommended by the committee to come to the January council meeting. I spoke to Mr. Willett on Friday afternoon after he had spoken to Terry and to Carol, and he said that he thinks that there was some misunderstanding when he initially talked to the staff. I think it might have been Stacey, in relation to the recommendation that came to the economic development meeting. And he was under the impression that $500 was as much as he could have. And he said, well, if that is as much as I could have, well, then he'd try and live with that and find the other money elsewhere. However, he said that what he was initially asking for, which is what they had budgeted for in the small group, was $1,000 to go towards the championship. And so he said that he'd talked to Terry and that they would be trying to get the other $500 to make it a gold sponsorship of $1,000, which is what he meant to come to the Economic Development Committee meeting. So I hope that clarifies that.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Is there anyone else? Councillor Schofield.
Look, I'd just like to clarify where I actually sit. Yes, I did meet with Mike up at Councillor Andrews. What I actually asked him was a lot of questions on what he was doing, who is being involved, and one thing I asked him about his sponsorship package, because it had come to the economic and tourism. As I see it at the moment, and I did ring him back today and said he had a couple of flaws in his sponsorship packages, and one is that he already has a gold sponsor, so if council was to equal that gold sponsorship, they would have to come up with the same amount of money as the other sponsor, so they couldn't be a gold. So I pointed out a couple of little things that he had wrong, said that I would write it out and then send it to him. But the sponsorship as it sits, he's already been paid $1,000, and I think there were 3 or 4 other small things in there. So council could equal that, but wouldn't be able to become a gold sponsor with only paying him $500.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield. Everyone having spoken, are there any further questions of clarification around this issue? If not, we'll go back to Councillor Andrews to close debate.
I just note that I'd like you to note in here I'm saying to the value of $1,000. So if that is in part cash and in part in-kind support, then that's okay. It's to the value of $1,000.
Councillor Marshall.
Yes, I just have a question, please.
Okay.
I'm concerned about this trend that seems to be infiltrating this council, that there are lots of secret meetings behind closed doors endorsing all these deals and scams and things. Why is it that the administration does not advise these people that that's not appropriate? All these sort of discussions should be held with the staff and with the elected members. We're not getting a situation. We have a situation now where 2 or 3, half a dozen of the elected members didn't know anything about this. We shouldn't have to go digging for this information. It should be made quite clear to us, and we should not have this sprung on us at the 11th hour and then someone expecting us to endorse a payment which is probably not even budgeted for. So I'm just wondering what Mr Maxwell's comments are on that, please.
Well, from Council's administration's point of view, we rely on the communications that come through to the Council formally and the formal Council committee structures. I have no idea what other side meetings, etc., or interactions that the elected members have had with Mr Willett or anybody else for that matter, so I can't specifically comment on that. But I do know that elected members get approached from time to time on all sorts of things.
Yeah, but the people shouldn't be having meetings regarding sponsorship in people's homes. They should be doing that in a totally open environment rather than behind closed doors in someone's private home. It's fine. Look, we all meet each other and friends and people's in their homes, but you don't do that when it comes to council financial matters. It's just not transparent. It's not, I think, not ethical. And I can't recall that. I'm trying not to be a hypocrite. I can't recall that I've ever got involved in council discussions about money and setting policy. It's also illegal, as you know, to have a meeting where decisions are made. So I'm quite concerned about it.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. I'm sure your concerns are noted by our fellow elected members. Councillor Andrews, having already closed debate, will take this motion to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? So that motion is lost. Councillor Andrews has called for a division. Councillor Andrews got there just before you, Councillor Marshall. All those in favour, please stand, and all those against can remain seated. So, in favour are Councillor Chigwin. And Councillor Andrews. And against is Councillor Schofield. Councillor Marshall. Councillor Charles. And Councillor Jenkins. Okay. Councillor Andrews, do you have anything further relating to this direct matter? No? If not, I will vacate the chair and go get the mayor. Thank you.